and welcome to this latest edition of Bulls on Parade Talk. I am your host, Joshua Sines, and today you might notice I sound a little different. And no, I did not change my voice. No, I did not do anything to myself to make my voice sound different, look different. I don't look any different. You notice the quality does not sound the same. Well, I decided to take it upon myself to invest in a microphone, a better microphone. That's right. I will no longer be using the laptop built-in microphone to do my recording. I decided to buy a very good quality mic for my podcasts and YouTube videos. So everything you'll be hearing from me on my podcast and on YouTube, which I am still recording simultaneously, will be used with a new mic. But that's not what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. So with that little update of mine out of the way, I'd like to take a moment to kind of talk to you guys about an article that I recently read shortly after I watched the Houston Rockets defeat the Milwaukee Bucks. And it got me thinking, and it got me thinking for a little bit, and it's something that I really, really have stressed throughout ever since this whole draft process started. And that was the overrated, if you want to call it that, overrated emphasis on the word need. And Tania Ganguli, who covers the Houston Texans for ESPN, did a very good job, in my opinion, explaining basically what I've been saying, and her opening sentence pretty much sums it up. Pretty much sums up how I basically feel about this draft class and how everyone I've basically seen, everyone I've talked to, everyone I've listened to, everyone I've read on social media, I said the same thing. But the way that Tania opens this article, and I'll read it right here, quote, she said, "The Houston Texans need a quarterback. But need is a dangerous word around this time of year." Yes! That is exactly what I have been saying. Need is very dangerous, is overemphasized, and it's sometimes, because of it, a lot of college kids get forced into a situation they're not ready for. And I'm gonna go through this article basically to kind of explain, and I'm gonna use this article a little bit and the content within it to sort of reference basically what she's saying and what I always and how I basically feel. She does a very good job of basically explaining my feelings as well as something that she probably feels. But and her next sentence is also very enlightening. Is also very good, and it's right on the money. It says, quote, "Bad things can happen when a team considers need disproportionately to what's available." And basically, it talks about the 2011 offseason. And I cannot believe I did not think about this soon. I didn't think of it sooner. You look in the league right now, a lot of teams are not doing so well, and they're back in the quarterback lottery, the quarterback seeking club, whatever you want to call it, back in the hunt for a quarterback. Excuse me, if you want to call it that. Mainly because some of these teams they got a quarterback in the 2011 draft, and he's not doing very well. Now, before I go any further to kind of explain it, let let's go. Let's revisit the 2011 offseason. In the 2011 offseason, there were a few teams that really needed a signal caller, and I'll go down the list as it's listed in this article. The Carolina Panthers, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Arizona Cardinals, the San Francisco 49ers, the Tennessee Titans, the Minnesota Vikings, the Washington Redskins, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, you look at the list of the teams. Now, you look at this list, and then you have to go back and think about this. Who was the number one pick in that draft? Oh, wait a minute. That was Cam Newton. Cam Newton was the number one overall pick. Who got him? Carolina. And look where they are now, 3 years down the road. They built a team around him. They put the franchise on him. He's shown skill, and he's definitely shown maturity, especially this season. And he took that team to the playoffs in his third year. Heck of a job by Cam Newton. But, so that was a win I believe that was a win for Carolina. We'll see where they go in the future. But after that, there was one guy that got taken by Jacksonville shortly after. And of course, I'm talking about Blaine Gabbert. Blaine Gabbert, a lot of people, Jacksonville was high on Blaine Gabbert, but not a lot of people were. You know, there were a lot of questions about him coming into this draft, especially consider the kind of offense that he played for. Think about it. He played at Missouri. They played a spread system back in those days. Even John Gruden, I remember watching his quarterback camp with Blaine Gabbert, and he really emphasized protection schemes with him. You know, I can't think of a guy that has not had the greatest protection besides him. You know, he hasn't really gotten a lot of help from his players. And even with that, he has not really improved. I have seen zero improvement from Blaine Gabbert. And the Carolina Panthers, I cannot believe I'm saying this, but the Carolina Panthers were actually working with him too. But of course, Cam Newton was the obvious number one pick in that draft. And then after that, you know, but then after that, in the offseason, although there were quarterbacks in this draft, some teams decided to either wait or get a quarterback in the offseason. Now, the Arizona Cardinals were, of course, looking for the predecessor to Kurt Warner, right? So anyway, the Cardinals got Kevin Kolb from Philly, and of course that didn't work out so well, and it basically got Ken Whisenhunt fired. That, and of course a couple losing seasons. So some teams decided to either wait later in the draft or decided to wait another year. So the Bengals, the 49ers, and the Washington Redskins all waited. But the Bengals and the 49ers waited for the second round. Think about this. Cincinnati, they took A.J. Green, 4th overall in that draft. And look what he's done. Second round, who they take? Andy Dalton. Now, Andy Dalton, now, of course, Andy Dalton has not been able to win a playoff game. You know, he's done good in the regular season, has done exceptional at home, struggles on the road. He has not been able to win a playoff game, lost twice to our Houston Texans, and, you know, couldn't win again in the wild card. 49ers, moving on to the 49ers, they took Aldon Smith with their 7th pick. And in the second round, who did they get? Colin Kaepernick in the second round, who we now see how he's emerged. But they got Colin Kaepernick, but they also hired Jim Harbaugh as the coach, and he kind of helped save Alex Smith's career. We all saw the kind of season Alex Smith had when he was given the reins and full confidence by the coach. We all saw what happened with him. And then, but then the following season they ended up winning the division. Colin Kaepernick ended up taking over the starting job, and they almost beat the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl. And of course, this past season, Colin Kaepernick, they didn't win the division. Of course, Seattle was the strongest team in the NFC West, and they deserve all the win and they deserve all the praise. But all of that said, I say the 49ers, they won the lottery with that. Now, Washington, they traded out of the top 10. And they decided to take Ryan Kerrigan in the draft. And they did not get a quarterback. That season they had John Beck and Rex Grossman, who at the beginning, and the Redskins, they started, I think they went 5-0 to begin that following season. But then just fell off the map. But they decided to wait, and they ended up drafting RG3. And if it wasn't for his injury, who knows what he could have done this season. But anyway. And of course, I mentioned the Jaguars who took Blaine Gabbert. But the other two that I didn't mention were Tennessee, who took Jake Locker, and the Vikings, who took Christian Ponder. Now let me go back to Blaine Gabbert really quick, just to kind of reference what they said. The Jaguars considered Blaine Gabbert the best quarterback in the draft. Now I don't know what they were thinking. I went back to look at him, and I'm like, wait a minute, why did they like him so much? Because I look at what he did in college, and I look at the way that he has not been able to translate well to this league, to the NFL. Makes you wonder. And it ended up getting the coach fired. So, I have no idea, and a lot of people agree, and a lot of people have said the same thing. Why was Jacksonville so high on this guy? So, he was immediately thrown into the starting role way before he was ready. They ended up going 5-11, and the head coach was fired. And then the following season, 2012, same GM decided to hold on to him, and they got Chad Henne, and they ended up going worse. They went 2-14, and they ended up firing their coach. So and now Jacksonville is back in the quarterback hunt. So that moves on to Tennessee. Mike Munchak, in his first season as the coach, took Jake Locker in the first round. And this season the Tennessee Titans went 7-9, but Jake Locker was, and you can make the case that Jake Locker needs more time. He spent some of his career injured. In his first season, he wasn't thrown into the role. I think Matt Hasselbeck was the quarterback, and he was thrown in late after, I think Matt Hasselbeck got hurt. But, he spent 2013 on injured reserve. Ryan Fitzpatrick was the guy that was quarterbacking that team from then on, right? So if the new coach, and I believe Ken Whisenhunt's now the new Titans coach. So we'll see what Ken Whisenhunt, an offensive guy, feels about Jake Locker and Ryan Fitzpatrick. They still finished 7-9, which is still a losing record, but still, it's not the end of the world. There is some kind of optimism there. But anyway, so that moves on to the last guy, the last team, the last franchise, and the last quarterback that's mentioned in this draft class. That is the Minnesota Vikings. They decided to take Christian Ponder in the first round. And Christian Ponder in his career has started 35 games. In those 35 games that he's been a starter, he's thrown 38 touchdowns, 34 interceptions. In 2012, they made the playoffs. Of course, Adrian Peterson was having the best year of his career, probably the best year we've ever seen out of a running back. But 2013, they didn't do so well. Ended up finishing last in their division. And now they're back in the top. And now they're back at the top of the first round looking for another quarterback. So the overall question and the title of Tania's article and of this video is what can we learn from the 2011 draft? And that is, we cannot force feed these guys. We cannot put a guy in a position he's not ready for. Skill-wise. Being a pro, it's not that easy. Some people just walk into the league and they get it. Andrew Luck. A lot of people were saying Andrew Luck was the best prospect to come out of college since Peyton Manning. But Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, they were ready coming out of college. They had the skill set. They had the IQ. They played in a pro style system. They had the mechanics. They had the intangibles. They had everything you look for in a quarterback. Right out of college, they were ready to play now. And we all saw what happened with Andrew Luck in his first season. The guy is what he was advertised. Exactly what everyone said he would be. But so you look at the way that these guys in the 2011 draft were basically thrown into the fire before they were even ready. A lot of people were saying, give these guys about a year to develop. Give these guys, put them on the bench, give them time to marinate, as some people would say. It's like the way that they used to treat rookies back in the old day. You're drafted, you get a clipboard, you get your baseball cap, you sit for a couple years, and then we'll see you years down the road, right? Well, now in this day and age, being that it's a quarterback league, you're drafted, you're in the starting role. Guys like Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco were immediately thrown in. But Joe Flacco and Matt Ryan, they were pro ready. They were ready to handle that. And we all saw what happened with those two. Of course, Joe Flacco ended up winning a Super Bowl. He had a defense. He had a running game. He had receivers. Matt Ryan has had receivers, has had a running game. But now in his last 2 years, they kind of given him the reins and, have given him more opportunities to pass. Now, of course, they took a step back this past season. But my point is, Matt Ryan was ready. Those guys were ready to play. And but Blaine Gabbert was nowhere near ready to be inserted into the starting role like that. He was not even close. Skill-wise, he needed work. He needed work. He needed time. He needed some time to sit back and learn and be an apprentice. So I know this is a quarterback. It's a quarterback league, and it's become a passing league. But at the same time, and please don't misunderstand my position. I'm not saying do what you did to Tebow, because with Tebow they babysat him, they coddled him, because here's the thing: with Tebow, they changed the offense entirely to limit how much he throws and to enhance how much he runs. Cam Newton never got that. Cam Newton was an option quarterback, but in his rookie year, he never ran the option. He never ran the option because they were confident in his abilities. They were confident that he was able to go in there and carry that team with the whole playbook and with that above average to average team. Below average to average team, excuse me. At the time. I don't like it when they do that. He's either ready or he's not. If he's not the bet, this is what in the pros it's paged, There are people that pay good money to see these guys play, and if he's not the best, he should not be out there playing. He should not be out there on the field. That's what I'm saying. If he's not ready, don't put him in. Don't force him in. Because all you're going to do is ruin his career. Now, in the long run, could it be healthy? Sometimes you get lucky. But, I am very hesitant to put a guy in I don't feel confident about it. If I'm not confident in somebody, I don't put him in. If I'm not confident in somebody, I say, you know what? He needs work. Let's give him some time. And then later on, when he looks ready, when he feels confident enough to go out there and show us what he's got, then I'll put him in. That's how I would do things. Now, and so there is a huge need by a lot of teams for a quarterback. A lot of teams are, I dare use this word, desperate for a quarterback. I don't think Houston is necessarily desperate, but at the same time, I do not, these guys are not sure. These quarterbacks are not a sure thing. Not a lot of people are sold on Teddy Bridgewater. Not a lot of people are sold on Blake Bortles, and I've already made my case on these quarterbacks. But not a lot of people are sold on Derek Carr. Not a lot of people are sold on Teddy. Not a lot of people are sold on Johnny. Not a lot of people, not a lot of people like these guys. These guys are raw. Especially Johnny and Blake. Those are the two that I feel need the most work. Teddy is the most polished, the most pro-ready out of all the quarterbacks in this draft class. If I had a choice to take a quarterback, and if he was still available, take Teddy top of the second round or late in the first round. I still stand by what I said by taking Jadeveon Clowney number 1 overall. If we still have the top pick, give me Jadeveon. He I believe is the most sure thing we have in the draft right now. I would not put that kind of stock, the kind of stock that the number 1 overall pick comes with, on any of these quarterbacks. I wouldn't. If I had to pick one, I'm on record saying this, and you can go check out my previous videos to hear me say all this. If I had to pick a quarterback, number one overall, and Jadeveon wasn't in this class, if I had to pick a quarterback, I'd go Teddy. He's more NFL ready than any of these guys that I've studied, that I've looked at, that I've watched, and that I've studied, and that I have seen other people say about him. Experts that study film for a living. And I'm not talking about ESPN. I'm talking about guys that spend their time watching games, studying tape for a living. Teddy is most ready. I want Teddy Bridge. If I had to pick a quarterback, I want Teddy Bridgewater in Houston. And you know, it's this whole thing, this whole mess with because I do not want to force feed anything to a guy who's not ready yet. Johnny Manziel to me is not ready to be a franchise quarterback, especially in Houston. And you know, there were people that are making the case, like some nuts on ESPN that are saying, "Oh, well, Johnny's box office." Do we really need that? Do we really need more box office help in Houston? We're already selling seats. We don't have that problem in Houston. We're not looking for more hype. We don't need it. Houston is a football town. You know, before the Texans, there were the Oilers. The people of Houston, we love football. We've been wanting football ever since the Oilers left. We've been wanting another team. And so when the Texans came, even when the Texans were struggling early in the early years, we were selling out seats. We were selling out the stadium. So we don't need help selling tickets. We got that covered. We got that covered. So all these people that are saying, "Oh, Johnny would bring more people. Johnny would attract more attention." We got all the attention in the world. Our record doesn't say this. And it's not all, and this is not all based on record, but we're a better team than Dallas right now. Think about it. Think about it. Dallas has not seen the playoffs in the last 4 years. 6-10, 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. In the last 3 years, the Houston Texans, 2 years straight, we won the AFC South. This year, there was a lot of momentum going into the season, but never happened. We ended up falling off, which is sad. But, you know, the Dallas Cowboys, they're the ultimate hype machine. They have the ultimate hype machine in Jerry Jones. Personally, I believe Johnny Manziel fits Jerry Jones' personality. That's my opinion, but hey, who am I to say? But hey, they don't need a quarterback, although I would not be surprised if Dallas decided to draft a guy like Aaron Murray, a quarterback of the future. But anyway, we cannot, you know, the word need. Although we need a guy, we cannot get a guy just because we need him. You have to grade these guys fairly based on what you see on film, but based on what you see at workouts, at the combine, at the pro day, during interviews, you know, the Wonderlic test, all this stuff that all of these things that these kids go through during this draft process. You evaluate it properly, and you take the best player. You take the best player that you have, that is there. Now, Would I want to see Teddy Bridgewater taken by the Texans? Sure, I would. But we're talking about the number 1 overall pick here. And if you're talking about the number 1 overall pick, you can't guess. That's my opinion. You cannot guess with the number 1 overall pick. And so that's why I believe in taking Jadeveon Clowney would be the best option. It's what I believe. It's what I firmly believe. It's what I stand on. I would not take any of these quarterbacks number 1 overall. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I would wait till either the top of the second round or trade back into the first round to get a quarterback. But I would not force that kind of stock, that kind of pressure, that kind of expectation on these guys. They are still young. I mean, none of these guys. There's quite a bit of underclassmen in this class. There's quite a bit of underclassmen in this draft. I would not want to force anything on. I would not force anything on these kids. Not yet. Not yet. So in conclusion, what am I trying to say? All I'm saying is, while there's a lot of hype about all of these quarterbacks, Tania in this article makes a very good point. Need can sometimes lead to disaster. And sometimes overemphasis on need. That is sometimes aided by outside people that are less intelligent than the GM, the owner, and the coach, or or just media as well. That can sometimes lead to trouble. And we have to be careful. We cannot get this wrong. Because I'm with Bob McNair and one statement that he made, when Gary Kubiak got fired. And that is, he said, this team is ready to win now. And I believe it. We have a defense. We have a running game. We still got Andre Johnson. We got a decent wide receiver. And we got a second. We got a number 2 receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. We got to make some moves in the offseason to free up some cap space. And I have a feeling that's going to happen. And once that happens, I'll be here reporting on all of those moves. But we need to see what happens. This team is ready to win. I believe that, you get the right pieces in place, and we're back to where we were before this season. We are back in the hunt. We are back in the hunt to get into the playoffs and potentially contend for a Super Bowl. At some point. I'm not saying next season. I'm just saying, we're back to where we started. I am back to where we are back to where we were in terms of getting back into the playoffs and potentially getting a Super Bowl berth. Potentially. I'm not saying next season it's going to happen, because I don't know, because nothing has been set yet. We don't know what kind of team we have yet, what kind of players we have as a whole yet. I've yet to see that. We have all yet to see that. So I say let's see what happens, and let's just hope for the very best. But I implore you to seriously consider this. Let's not force any of these quarterbacks into something that they're not ready for. Okay? So, with that being said, for those of you that want to read the entire article that I just helped break down, I will leave the article in the description below. Please be sure to leave a like on this video, and tell me what you think in the comments section. You know, what do you think you can learn about the 2011 draft? Would you have taken either of the quarterbacks in the first round like these teams did, or would you have waited like the 49ers, Bengals and the Redskins did? You know, what would you do? And finally, be sure to subscribe to this channel for more Houston Texans videos. I am here 365 days a year covering your Houston Texans. Be sure to also, if you are not aware, check out my podcast. The link will be in the description below as well. This has been another episode of Bulls on Parade Talk. This is Joshua Signs, signing off.